Welcome to the Bailiwick Express News Podcast with me, Fiona Potney. This week, we're looking at Jersey's links with Poland. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, many Eastern Europeans began looking towards the UK and Europe for new opportunities. With its thriving tourism and ever-growing finance industry, Jersey appeared a land of opportunity for many Poles. By 2011, there were more than 3,000 Polish people living in Jersey, contributing culturally and economically to island life. And that number continued to grow over the years. That is, until the double whammy of Brexit and the pandemic. The impact of these on the already high cost of living locally, combined with employment prospects improving elsewhere, has led many members of the Polish and other migrant communities, as well as locals, to take the difficult decision to leave. The effects of this are being keenly felt across the island, but particularly hospitality, where staff shortages mean many businesses are now struggling to stay open. One person who knows the challenges of recent years only too well is Honorary Polish Consul Magda Chmielewska. She was first appointed in 2012 to build cultural and trade bridges between Poland and Jersey, as well as helping individuals settle into island life. But more recently, she's been rushed off her feet dealing with the impact of COVID and the UK's departure from the EU on Polish nationals in the island. However, as well as helping resolve individuals' problems, she also has an eye on the bigger picture. She was recently behind a visit to Poland for Jersey decision-makers to see firsthand construction technology that may be able to assist with the island's housing crisis. And, harnessing the power and generosity of Jersey's diverse community, she helped organise one of the biggest shipments of donations to war-torn Ukraine. In recognition of her decade of service, Magda was recently awarded the Officer's Cross of the Order of Merit of the Republic of Poland on behalf of Polish President Andrzej Duda. In this interview, she reflects on her 10 years in the unpaid role, as well as prejudice, integration, and her exciting vision for Jersey and Poland to become world leaders in helping Ukrainian refugees. But firstly, we turned the clock back and discussed what first brought her to Jersey in the early 2000s.
Interesting one. So it was, if I remember it very well, it was 2002. The first time I came to Jersey, I was a student. I was studying a business and I was studying banking, a corporate business and banking. And the very good friend of mine from that university said, there is this advert going on and Jersey is needing a workforce. There's some work, a seasonal work in a hotel. Would you be interested? So I thought to myself, well, Jersey, why not? English, maybe not my strongest, but then I'll have a great opportunity to study. And I've decided to go for the interview. The work was advertised by the Merton Hotel, so that group. And in meantime, my friend decided to go to Germany. It was actually seasonal work, so it worked for me really, really well. As a student, I thought to myself, why not? So she dropped and I carried on. I've decided to come to Jersey. So it was a very lonely journey, at that time with a permit. To an unknown land, but there was something in it that I very much just wanted to do it, and I did it. And I came and I've worked at the first season. I've worked as a chambermaid for the Merton Hotel, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I remember the weather was gorgeous through the whole summer. I came in May. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. We all know the feature of this island in a bright day. So I loved it, and a year later I was asked by the same group in a particular Merton Hotel to come again if I'd be interested, and I thought, why not? I quite like it and I will repeat the experience, and I did. Loved it again, and then in 2004 I finished university in Poland. I graduated, got married, and together with my husband we came for a honeymoon to Jersey. And that's it. Since we've stayed.
You just fell in love with it.
We kind of both did, and decided that we're going to stay in Jersey, and then yes, and since the life was good.
And what was your impression of Jersey at that time? I mean, that's nearly 20 years ago now. What did you think about it at the time?
It was a different place, definitely different place, but I kind of I felt like Jersey was this place of an opportunity, something that, if you think to yourself, 20 couple of years ago in Poland, as a young a person, even though with the particular skills and education, there wasn't much of a chances on the market. We were still pretty much under the communism, sort of an influence, socialism, big time. So it wasn't the country of the opportunity, which Jersey basically was. And I wasn't misleading on it. Quite fast, we've managed to find ourselves to work in finance. My husband went to work in PwC. I got a job in a bank within my education, which was great, yes.
So then tell us about how you made that journey towards what you're doing now as Consul.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's interesting, but where do I start? So, being, I suppose, in the heart of the community, it was always my thing. As a little girl, I was always the head of the class in the school. I was always, helping others. So I kind of noticed that the community. Although at that time Rodney was the honorary consul, we had the consul. It was a consul that didn't spoke English, so people needed a service of translation and so on. So I was helping them out, but kind of falling in love with the role itself. And I remember very clearly this almost 20 years ago when I've met Rodney, thinking, "Gosh, what a privileged and incredible position to be in, to be able to help these people through the role." That's really big. But I continued within my work with the community, was helping people out and so on. So then we had Wanda Adam appointed as a consul, and I worked closer with Wanda, being quite close to the community. We did put a cultural event together, and Wanda suddenly left Jersey, and then through the work with her, she did ask whether I wouldn't consider, as she thinks that I would be the candidate for. It took me good at least 6 months to think about it, because being in a position of someone who actually helping already and representing people and so on, I knew how big responsibility that is. So it wasn't a rushed decision. It was a very well thought through decision. But then I was thinking, doing what I'm doing as an ordinary Magda, if I could get the title, I could do twice as that. And obviously, I knew the amount of the work would have to be done within the community. I was fully aware of the fact that the position is honorary, so I'd never get paid for. But then the satisfaction that comes out from helping others, being in a position to make a difference in people's lives, basically took over. And here I am, 10 years later.
Still doing it.
Still doing it. Still being reappointed for the next 5 years. So
excellent. Well, let's just focus a bit on those early days. I mean, obviously, more recently, you've been dealing with things like the pandemic, Brexit, the war in Ukraine, but back when you first started, I mean, what were the type of things you were being asked to help with? What were the challenges then?
There was loads of different, and indeed, rightly said, through the whole 10 years, the post has evolved. The needs have completely changed. So since the beginning, people weren't really aware of the system, how things work, what they entitled, what they obliged to. If you think to the differences between Polish law and Jersey law, they're massive. So things that in Poland you get a fine for, in Jersey you can go to the prison for. So educating people, it was a massive thing for me to make them aware of the differences in the law. So that was big. It's not the case anymore.
And so looking to more recently, I mean, obviously, I guess the first of the now quite large list of sort of challenges you're having to deal with, Brexit came along. What was that like? What were the first things you had to think about at that moment in time?
Brexit was like a typical, the way people felt, and I've seen it before, not myself, but in others, it was a typical a reaction to a divorce, shock, sadness, and some others. And we have dealt with it. Those that felt that their position in Jersey, it's not guaranteed and they're not safe anymore, and so on, basically left. So we've had a loss of a number of Polish people, families, because of the Brexit, basically leaving Jersey over the uncertainty of.
And that's really difficult for the island as well. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of Polish people in the island and they provide a really important part of the workforce. I mean, what impact has there been as a result of those departures? Well,
I think we all feel the impact of loss of the members of the Polish community. It's only the last year when I've started monitoring, really, because we've had the COVID and then we've had the outbreak of the coronavirus. And when I started monitoring how many really people is living, so in average 2 Polish families a week were living last year this island. So if you think to yourself to the numbers that we actually have and the size of the island, it was an exodus. So as a result of it, I think, and not only Polish people, I am aware of that some members of the Portuguese community decided to leave the island as well. So I think there isn't a part of the local economy that has not been affected. I think everyone is screaming for workers, and there is on each and every level of the business. As we, I think I'm very much right to say that we've contributed into each and every part of the business of this island, from being lawyers, doctors, to picking and packing potatoes.
Absolutely. And what sort of contribution has issues with cost of living had as well? Because, I mean, obviously a lot of people, if this is their second home, they might be renting, for example. Is that some feedback that you've had that's also made things challenging?
I think you're very right. So definitely Brexit, definitely the COVID and the cost of living adds into it. But then that's something that we all have to face, and it doesn't really matter whether you're Polish, Portuguese, or you're local. We all have the same battle to battle, simply speaking. So there was definitely a number of people that left and still considering leaving because of that factor. It is an expensive place to live, beautiful, but there is a cost in it, and that's a hefty cost. So if you're not privileged, I suppose, to work in finance, also you're not a high flyer earning a certain amount of the money. If you think to yourself that you have someone who works on a till in one of the grocery shops, the salary is around £2,000 a month. What do you do with it if you have a child or two? It's just. But this is something that we all facing. It's not a Polish or Portuguese or Romanian. It's all of us. We have the same problem. Cost of living, it's what it is.
And are you having any discussions, or have you been approached to try and think of ways in which we can try and help people or stop them from considering leaving?
Well, there is lots of ways that we could tackle the problem and stop. But then if you think about the Polish community, I know a number of local people that left. The only thing I would say, and that would be addressed to the new government, which I hope their decision would lead into a serious actions against actually against what is happening, and actually preparing something that would allow people to stay and to live, because local people are living as well. Young people are living. Young people which graduated aren't considering to come back to this island, which is tragic in my opinion. And the way I look into it is we need to be smart, we need to be savvy on it, we need to prepare something that would allow those people to be here, to come back and to thrive. I'm really hoping for this government to address the issue, and there are mechanisms which could be put in place and make this happen and basically create a really nice, safe home. The reason I'm saying is that Poland is a part of the European Union. So as we know, it's 26 other countries in a port. So as a good example, each and every Pole that lives in this island, having a Polish passport, can choose 25 other countries apart of Poland to go to live, to thrive, to make business and so on. What kind of a chances does have a local person? We know the answer, right? There's only one direction. So that's put the local community into a very unprivileged position. So that needs to be addressed. And I'm saying it as a proud Pole, living in this island, but loving this island. My child was born in here, and she would be called local. I would like her at some point, and one day, and in overall, to stay in Jersey, to contribute into this island, not to choose to go somewhere else.
So just pausing and thinking about that, you said there are various kind of mechanisms you'd like to see maybe the government bring forward. I mean, is there anything in particular you think?
There is lots, and I can talk hours, but I think, I would not like to be the one that basically giving the government a solid answers or maybe guidance but I'm happy to be consulted at any point in time. But I think it's really for them to tackle into it, being serious about and I know that there are mechanisms that can make a difference. And we've discussed with the ministers, with people now in post, with those previously being in post. We have discussed those. And what I'm trying to say and bring into the table, not invent the wheel again, because it's been invented, but a mechanism that Poland, for example, implemented within the country, and that worked. So this is my role, to bring examples of other actions that made the difference, and they are exposed to it. So whatever they're going to do with it, we'll see.
Well, there's obviously plenty of opportunities for Jersey to learn from Poland, and obviously you facilitate that. What kind of opportunities have you seen? I know previously you've been involved in kind of construction visits and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would definitely consider myself as a lobbyist as well, not only the Polish Consul, making sure that the interest of Poles has been protected and they've been heard and seen, but as well to be a lobbyist. Being in a position like mine, it's a privileged position. You have an access to people. You have access to ministers, to deputies, and the good thing about it is in Jersey that people want to know. So I think with this government more than ever, we'll have the opportunity to discuss the different opportunities and ways of doing things. And rightly said, the construction. It's a very good point. I've organized in Jersey in March this year the first ever business roundtable, which brought two different countries together, and that was in construction. As a result of it, we've got now a first block of flats in 6 panels in modular building being built, constructed, and people are moving in this Christmas. Wow. to those accommodations. As a result of the roundtable, another thing which we spoke, and it wasn't possible in Jersey, it was mortgages on those houses. They're all mortgageable now. Right. So within a couple of months, the difference where we are now, it's absolutely massive. So definitely this part of the business, it's on my agenda. I know very well how Poland has evolved and changed, implementing all the changes. Well, let's face it, the modular technology has been on the market for long time. It's 30, 40, 50 years. Nothing new. The fact is that Jersey is basically technology-wise behind it. And that's not our fault. It's basically where we are without a need. But the need is here, and I feel responsible for bringing the solutions into this island. And this is what I did. So I'll carry on with the modular building in the Jersey. There is quite an interesting program as well that I'm preparing with one of the local companies. So that's definitely big time on my agenda. It's definitely a way of addressing speed in building, efficiency in carbon neutrality, and other factors. So yes, this is happening as we speak. Another 14 flats to be built from August this year in this island, and people are moving in January next year.
So it's hugely
indeed
fast.
So and I am taking a credit for it, because I brought it into this island. There were people that wanted to hear, wanted to know, and then again an incredible way of making the difference.
Absolutely. And what sort of other opportunities do you see for both sort of trade and cultural exchange as well? I mean, for example, would it be an improvement for the island to be able to have more kind of direct flights or that type of thing?
I think there is a lot. Obviously, what we have done up to the Brexit and COVID was number one. Then now the whole world faces completely different challenges. There's carbon neutrality, efficiency. There is economically, where we are, a struggle and so on. But then the thing really is, there is lots of things we can exercise, absolutely loads. And the Jersey Business Roundtable, which have organized in March, in construction, around construction, was the first one. There was as well a part given to fintech, which I know there is companies in contact and in exchange of information. Poland is an interesting country that evolves. For example, Polish banking system is the most advanced in the whole world. So obviously there is loads of talks behind the scenes. Another Jersey Business Roundtable would be around food. So we will be facing food shortages and so on. Poland manufactures quite a lot, quite vast in terms of that. So I'll be definitely linking Poland and Jersey with if there would be any need. And we get an understanding that there are partners in Jersey that are interested and some others. So the thought is evolving. The fact that we've done it and I'm in a position to bring the knowledge of both and understanding, it's amazing.
And to what extent is there also interest in Jersey kind of products or services that can be brought to Poland?
Yes, absolutely. Jersey services, absolutely, and a product in Poland too. So we we are in the process of introduction the Jersey royals into the Jersey ice creams, and obviously finance products. So there was a meeting with the finance representatives in Jersey as well. So people are linked. So what I'm always saying to everyone, I am absolutely happy to create an environment for business, and this is what I would take a responsibility for. Whether there would be any business made as such, I can't make anyone to do the business, but I'll definitely bring right people to the table and create an environment for. Mm-hmm. So hopefully there'll be more. And if there would be anyone wanting to know more about Poland, as we had, for example, a query, someone wanted to buy 100 tons of a coal. No problem. There is a contact. No problem. None of it is anymore. And some other products. So we get loads of questions, lots of queries, and I'm happy to help anyone who is looking for an alternative route of. I think what Brexit did to all of us, and those particularly in business, made us think more creatively. So it means that we do not look into UK market anymore as the only market that we do the business with. That market suffers because of the implication that the Brexit brought on board. So people decide to look for the field, and they are choosing Poland as one of those countries that will bring modular housing, windows, and some other produce, from. So I'm absolutely thrilled of this relationship, thrilled.
Brilliant. Just sort of, again, touching on Brexit there, I mean, we've spoken about a lot of the kind of positives that have come from it, but of course it was a moment of great division, both in the UK, and some of the ripples of that were felt in this island. I wondered if you might share your reflections on sort of the feelings within the Polish community about acceptance and whether or not there have ever been any moments of tension or difficulty. I know you've previously spoken out about, sometimes having abuse for simply doing your job.
Yes, that's another part of for someone doing what I'm doing. So it's obviously I don't have hidden agenda. I don't get paid for it, and yes, sometimes I get an abuse, and I think people are allowing sometimes themselves for being the way they are, because as you can imagine, as a local, if you are a local, you have your family to defeat you, a family to basically stand by your side. I am on my own. I have my own to fight for, and my Jersey local friends to fight for. But in general, as an immigrant, you're much more vulnerable. So yes, people kind of out of an anger, and I don't think that actually people, in terms of the Brexit, kind of felt bad about Polish people. I think some people kind of felt, in general, being very unhappy about the decision and what is happening. So not really knowing what to really do with it. They were basically, whatever they were saying at that particular point. So we had a bit of a tension, Yes, people were genuinely unhappy with the decisions, and I think particularly that Jersey never had the say on the Brexit, and were put into the same pot, and that's it. So yeah, a couple of sorts of bad moments, but things that won't kill you will make you stronger. So as a community, we're stronger than ever.
Absolutely. Well, just touching on that theme of community there, I mean, let's look to more recently, the great act of community that was the Ukrainian donations that you coordinated. Can you tell us a bit about that process and how it felt when they finally landed in Ukraine?
Oh dear, that's quite a topic. Yes, so maybe I'll talk about the figures because the figures always kind of a talk. So in total, we have managed to, Jersey has managed to donate 367 pallets of goods. That was over 51,500 kilograms. The goods have traveled over 3,500 miles. Because if you can imagine the 85, maybe almost 90% of the goods donated in Jersey went to Ukraine. So they were taken from Jersey to Poland to Caritas in Rzeszów, which was our assigned partner for receiving the goods. And then Caritas in Rzeszów has moved those goods to Ukraine, mainly to Kiev. So amazing as a result. Over 1,500 people from Jersey came together to help. It was moving, it was beautiful, it was something absolutely magical. But what it actually did at that point made me thinking. People knew me. So when I basically issued the call out, people more or less knew who I am, what I'm doing, my position and so on. So the fact that I have worked 10 years in the role, being good, being bad, being with people happy and people unhappy, and sometimes people asking what you're really doing for. You don't get paid, and it's at least 2 to 3 hours of a day of your work. Really, but that paid off a big time. People came together the way we kind of did it. It was magical. I was moved. I was proud. So a part of me, I was proud of being Pole, living in here, and being able to making it happen. And but then the second part of me was being proud that I live in Jersey and proud to be a member of this community. We've been united. In Jersey schools, we speak 64 different languages. Such a tiny place, such a diversified place. I don't know whether there is another place in this planet, of such a diversity. But we spoke the same language, we acted the same, and it was magical. From bailiff's office to Port of Jersey, ferry speed, private individuals, private donors, it was magical. Absolutely magical. I've never ever experienced anything like that, and probably won't. But that was worth of actually doing the 10 years of the work with the communities to do this.
Just for that moment.
Just for that moment.
And is it something that you want to take further in any way? Obviously, you've harnessed this great swell of community support. You've done an amazing deal of work for Ukraine, but is there anything else that you've got in your mind?
I would say definitely yes. So what we, as community, what we really facing, well, myself, there is every day there is a phone call, there is an email, people asking, stopping me on the street, is there anything else we can do? Of course there is. Of course there is. There's plenty we can do. The thing really is we have 4.5 million refugees in Poland as of today. Between 8 to 10,000 new coming every day. So I'm in Poland in average twice a month, checking on the borders, checking with Caritas, checking with people that receiving those refugees. People are in huge distress. So the number would be growing and growing. So the number won't be going a smaller, won't shrink. We don't think any sooner. So yes, there is another thing that I want to do in Jersey, and it's something that no one has done it before. As we can imagine, the number of the refugees Poland has embraced and carries on embracing. It's the largest since the Second World War. So number is growing, and it will continue to grow because the war isn't going anywhere, and we all know it. There's a number of orphans from Ukraine being placed now in Poland, which will probably never go back to Ukraine. So I was sitting and thinking, what else could we do? So I've spoken with the Caritas in Rzeszów, that was the main partner for us, and I did ask whether there is, raising funds, but what for? Giving them towards what? People want to see a solid result, like exactly with the same what we did. People donated goods, and they knew that those goods went to Ukrainian people, and they felt extremely good about it. So I was thinking we need a project, and so I spoken through the Polish embassy in London with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm notifying higher rank as well, people in Poland, together with the Prime Minister, about the project that I'm doing. And when I went to one of the meetings, I'm going to just offside for a second. When I went to one of the meetings and I've mentioned of the amount of the money we would need to create an accommodation for these children, they said, no problem, of course. 3 people in a room and you've got it. To a cause like that, of course. Yeah. So that kind of made me to think, God, there is the spirit in this island, in this heart of these people. So yes, so there is a project I am preparing. It would be a fundraising project, but towards creating a habitable premises within the Caritas for women and children, that would be the first ever project of this type being done. I'll try to invite the government of Jersey, which I'm still waiting for the shape and the form of to be finalized, to that project. So it will be government to government. I'll encourage high-rank representatives of the Polish government to come in Jersey, talk about the crisis of what really Poland needs, and doing the project as an example of what the rest of the world could do. I'm going to mention something else which I think it's very important to be mentioned. When our goods went to Poland, I spoke with the Caritas. Caritas in Rzeszów, it's close to the Ukrainian border. It's placed in very close to the Ukraine border. And so they basically were hit by, the wave of the refugees and so on as one of the first lines. The Father Piotr from the Caritas said to me, Mrs. Consul, we're working with 20 couple of European Union countries. But guess what? You've given us the largest number of donations. It wasn't France. It wasn't Germany. It was Jersey.
Wow.
Isn't this incredible? It was Jersey. So he was saying that, we received and lorry from there, lorry from there. We've sent number of lorries, 15 of lorries altogether. So none of the countries. So we can think of what else as a small island, how much of a difference we can do. A lot more. And we can be an example to others to follow. So government to government, projects to project, institution to institution. This is what I want to do. And this is what I'm working to prepare and soon to be unveiled. And people will have an opportunity to make a difference to a life of those that basically cannot help themselves.
Thank you, Magda. That's it for this week's Bailiwick News podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please like and share, it all helps. And if you're keen for more, you can also find a selection of interviews, explainers and in-depth analysis from Express in all the usual pod places. There'll be more next week from me and all of the team.